Everyone's talking about AI, but who's actually implementing it? I'm Jenna Ahern, the CEO of Guardian Owl Digital, a search engine marketing firm rooted in integrity and transparency in the digital age. AI and marketing are at a crossroads, and the technology is moving faster than most business leaders can keep up with. That's why we created Go AI, a podcast series where we interview leaders in various industries about all things artificial intelligence. With each guest, my co-host Connor Rafferty and I will explore the applications that this rapidly evolving technology has for business leaders and their industries. Let's go AI. Welcome back, everyone, to the Go AI podcast. We are thrilled to introduce today's guest, David Durik, the CEO of HelloSpoke. David, tell us a little bit about your role and how you became the CEO of HelloSpoke.
Yeah, absolutely, Jen. Well, thank you first for having me on the podcast. I was excited to do this. So I'm like a serial entrepreneur. Out of college, I worked in commercial lending for a short stint at a bank and decided that being in a cubicle looking at like stacks of documents and legal like mumbo jumbo was not my interest. So I quickly pivoted to the entrepreneurial world and started a company. And this is
when it wasn't
yet,
cool.
Back in like 1989, you know, I mean, like the internet was not a thing yet.
I was one.
So, yeah, there you go. Right. So the internet, we do everything on our phones now, and you roll it back all the way to then. And we had an idea for a marketing hotline that back then, again, it was like touch tone phones. And we started a hotline for the apartment industry. So if you remember, you don't remember this because you were one, but if you were shopping for an apartment back in the day, you would go to like Kroger and find a printed magazine.
Okay.
And that was the only, you'd flip through this little like newspaper magazine and it would show you the apartments available. So we had this wonderful idea to do that through a phone call.
Okay.
Well, we went out and sold our marketing hotline, to the apartment industry, and we kept getting feedback that they thought our service was mildly interesting, but everybody complained about their after-hours answering service, like the maintenance escalation for residents. So if a resident lives in an apartment community, during the day they call the office, somebody goes over and fixes the leaky toilet. After hours, they call the office. Nobody's in the office, so that call has to be handled still, because if there's a flood or something's overflowing, maintenance needs to get out there and get it fixed.
Sure.
So we kept hearing this, and we pivoted pretty early on and said, you know what? Maybe there's a way we can apply technology to escalate a phone call. Because back in the day, they were using live answering services. And literally, the live answering service back in the early 90s was typically a woman in her kitchen at 2 a.m, answering the phone, scribbling down a message, and then hopefully they were calling maintenance to make sure that they followed up with the resident. So,
oh, wow.
You can see that would be fraught with a lot of
There's a lot of
issues.
holes there.
A lot of holes there, right? Mm-hmm. So we came on the stage, developed a technology to basically escalate the phone call. So we would take a recorded message from the resident about what their maintenance issue was, and then our system would have pre-programmed phone numbers to contact maintenance. If the maintenance person didn't call back and listen to the resident's message, then we'd continue to triage that or escalate it until somebody responded.
Okay.
And that truly is the genesis of what we still do today. Okay. As the years passed, we built a very successful business. We had an acquisition in 2015. We had run that business for, 25 years roughly. And there was an opportunity for my business partner and I to take money off the table, which we did. And we sold to a publicly traded company, and they kind of took all our technology, took all our sales reps, took a bunch of the assets from our current operations, with the acquisition, but they left us a couple of key folks that either it was a duplication of the resources that they currently had or whatever. But ironically, they left some of the smartest people in our company.
Lucky you.
With us. I know, So we had some service agreements in place in 2015 where we agreed to support the technology. We sold them for like a 2-year period of time.
Okay.
We needed to keep these resources on because they were the ones that typically could support what we had sold off. As we kind of rolled our sleeves up and we were supporting the technology we had sold, we recognized that over the course of those 2 years, the company that acquired those assets did nothing with them. So we gave them a product roadmap as to where our customers wanted to go from a technology perspective. They didn't implement that roadmap. They kind of were using, I guess, our product as a cash cow. It was highly successful. It was working great, and they didn't want to invest in it.
Okay.
So about year 2, when we were kind of rolling out from the service agreements, some of the folks on our much smaller team at that point came to me and said, hey, we want to make another run at this. We think there's a lot of cool new technologies and features that we could put in place and create a better service. Now, we were under a 5-year non-compete. So 2 years are up. We had 3 years to go. So it meant funding an operation before we could really sell anything. We had to develop it and what have you. But 3 years is quite a long time to go through that process without generating any revenue, right? So my business partner and I looked at it. We looked at the folks that we had on board and we agreed with them that there was an opportunity here. So what we did is we pivoted a little bit more in the short term just to create some services that were non-competitive to what we sold off. And we were able to generate some revenue while we were working on HelloSpoke, the bigger and better product.
And what year are we in?
All right, so we're in 2015 was the acquisition. 2017, we were rolling out from underneath those obligations that we had with the acquiring company, and we were kind of going on our own at this point. So over the course of 2017 to 2020, we were sleeves rolled up, knee-deep into embracing new technologies, recognizing areas that we needed to move away from for the technology that we sold off. So we had some kind of proprietary software that we had sold off that limited our ability to be as flexible as we wanted to be with services that we were creating. So we got into the open source software world. Our guys, again, were super smart, being able to embrace that, understand it, and allow us to work with it. So we built the HelloSpoke platform on a completely kind of open source environment, which is really cool. But unlike Microsoft or these software packages that you buy that come with really great manuals and they tell you everything about it, the open source world is the wild, wild west, And
yes, it is.
About the only way you're going to learn is to do it.
And make your own mistakes.
Yeah, trial and error and, hopefully document along the way. So if that pops up again, you've got some sort of a manual to refer to. But we did it and we were highly successful doing it. And we launched Notify, our escalation product, in 2021. I think we finally went to market with it. AI really was not mainstream at that point.
No, 2021.
Yeah. I mean, it was, it was in the ether somewhere. I'm sure in MIT, they were talking about it in laboratories somewhere, but the world hadn't really, been exposed to it. So, we were just busy kind of creating cool technology and trying to go now and talk to some of the customers that left with the acquisition to win their business back. We had quite a bit of success doing that. And, a lot of funny stories along the way of bringing some of the old band members that went with the acquisition back to our team. Yeah. And I could write a book on some of the things we saw.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, it's another podcast for sure. But it ended up that we have just a fantastic team. We got a couple of the key operatives back from the acquisition world who drive our sales team now in some areas like that. And we're full bore into the world of AI at this juncture. So,
which is incredible, by the way.
It's been a journey,
Yeah, but you were doing this and you released a product in 2021 that you had been, the idea of this was 5 years beforehand.
Yeah.
Then you built it. And this is all before ChatGPT became really consumer facing in 22, November 22. So that's pretty remarkable.
I always tell people, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I got to get the hell out of that room. That's a low common denominator. And I've learned through the course of running companies and working with people is that if you get really highly motivated, intelligent, ethical people to embrace an idea and the idea has merit, then if you give them a lot of room to run, then great things really will happen. There's a lot of trust and things like that go into that magic recipe. But I had the advantage of working with a lot of the people for many years. The trust element, I knew I could trust my team. It was there. And we've always been very innovative. We've always embraced kind of the what if, what could be possible if. But AI opens up a new world that is really, it's challenging. You've got to run like a cheetah, right? Because everything is moving at warp speed.
So fast.
But also you have to be cognizant and cautious about where you're running to, because
the risks.
There's a finite amount of resources. And if you apply those in a direction and you go down that rabbit hole and it's not the right rabbit hole, then it's hard to unwind that and then catch up. So you've got to run fast, but you've got to be aware of the environment you're working in and the opportunities that exist and not be afraid to be nimble enough to pivot. A door is closing that you thought maybe was open.
Yeah. And run full speed in a better direction.
Yeah, I know. And that's what it is, you know, and it's exciting and fun, but that's why all the gray hair, I'm sure. So.
Well, tell us about, Notify was the first then AI product that HelloSpoke rolled out. Tell us what Notify is.
Okay, so Notify, back when we talked about the emergency escalation a few minutes ago, it is a product that we sell into the multifamily housing industry. So apartment communities across the United States and Canada and Mexico and wherever, they still need a solution after hours. And actually, they'll use us during office hours. If the people in the office are unable to answer the ringing phone,
they get busy.
Right? And the world of multifamily and apartment communities is tough because, you've got folks who run these offices and they're usually pretty lean staffed, and they never know who's going to come through the front door of that office that wants to plop down in their seat and talk about a problem or rent an apartment or, complain about something or whatever the myriad of things that might happen during the day. And then the phone starts ringing in the background, right? So with Notify, that phone can ring, and after a certain number of rings, they can have the confidence of knowing that our AI system is going to pick it up. And at that point, we need to interact with that caller at their level. That's wherein lies the main challenge.
Okay.
It'd be easy if every caller was calling about the same thing and you had to address one or two or three different things and you'd be good to go. But we know that's not how the real world works.
And so you could be dealing with, hey, my apartment's on fire or my unit's on fire, all the way to, hey, I need a key or I need like something, pretty minuscule. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and then everything in between, right? So it might not even be a resident calling. It might be a person trying to sell them a new copier.
Oh, geez.
It might be the police chief wants to come by and check the security gates.
Okay, that's a great example.
It's an infinite possibility, right? So, that's tough. Where we really embraced AI in the beginning was all around the maintenance call, okay? If you look at it through the lens of a maintenance call, at least you've taken an infinite number of different options and you've now kind of reduced it down to a subset that, although still very broad, more manageable. Okay. To your point, it could be somebody calling because their unit's on fire or they've locked out and they need a key or their toilet's overflowing or, they've got a rat in their kitchen. It could be a million things, right? But it's still a finite number as opposed to infinite. So we used AI to try to distill down out of all of those different types of maintenance calls, which ones require true escalations and which ones can wait until regular business hours to contact someone. And there's a whole quality of life issue there for a maintenance person, okay?
Sure.
So one of the challenges in the multifamily world is that maintenance staff are kind of jacks of all trade.
Okay.
Like they need to work on HVAC systems. They need to know plumbing. They need to know
they're well-rounded.
They're very well-rounded, right? They are. Well-rounded people sometimes are more difficult to find than people that just want plumbing or, that's what I want to do all day is I want to work on plumbing. So these well-rounded folks are very hard to find. They're somewhat unicorns. And when you find them, you want to wrap your arms around them and just take really good care of them because you don't want to have to replace them.
Sure.
Right? So when you talk about quality of life in the multifamily world for a maintenance person, those after-hours calls can really be taxing. So you're asleep at 2 a.m, your phone rings now, okay, because somebody has reported an issue, right? And if you answer the call and someone on the third floor's tub is overflowing and there's water shooting everywhere, absolutely you need to get out of bed and you need to get over there ASAP, right? But what happens if you've got the insomniac at 2 a.m. who's sitting in the kitchen and they see an ant, okay, on the floor? Boom, they freak out. They're calling in as well, right? Now, the maintenance person has to answer that call. So they wake up at 2 a.m, their phone's ringing, they answer that call, and it's not something that they need to address at 2 a.m. So we looked at it that lens and we decided, let's try to apply AI here and become really good at figuring out what calls we need to dispatch and which calls can wait till regular business hours, okay? Sounds fairly straightforward, but it was a good 1.5 year build.
Yeah.
And a ton of data.
Yes, sure.
Get into the AI world. Everybody talks about big data, right? And then you get into foundational AI where now it's still big data, but it's very specific to a vertical, right? Or a specific need. So our challenge is taking all of these maintenance calls that we have over the course of years and pulling data out there to you got to try to distill it down to all right, what are our different categories within maintenance?
Sure.
Like plumbing, HVAC, fire, flood, lockouts, all these different things. And then you've got to look at it and say, okay, of these things in each one of these little piles, which ones need to be dispatched and which ones don't?
Yeah. Which one needs a human for that first phone call?
That's right. So that is where we kind of cut our teeth. We became very good at. Matter of fact, we're best in industry on the maintenance call of using AI to kind of ferret out what's an emergency and what's not an emergency.
And you're based in Louisville.
We're based in Louisville. Well, that's cool, right?
It's very cool.
Yeah, it is. And we have been based in Louisville ever since we got the company started. It's been a great city. It's not like a tech mecca,
But you started it.
Well, yeah.
You helped start
I don't
it.
know if I helped start it. Thank you, Jenna. That's very kind words to say. Just like I brought the sunshine back to Louisville on Monday morning.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, but you have great people here. And I think there's a soul to the people that exist in Louisville, Kentucky. And I don't know if it's from all the good bourbon we drink or what. There's a thread that kind of bonds us together, that there's a loyalty there that is important if you're growing a company that you need to have.
So could you bring us a little closer into the process of preparing the AI and just what you learned about AI in bringing this product to market and training it and building it? What insights about AI do you have for our viewers?
It's a great question. About 2022, 23 is when we really decided this was a route we wanted to go down, right? The large language models were just starting to come into the picture, but they were fraught with a lot of, they were great for like transcribing a conference call, or if you needed your senior paper written in high school,
Yeah,
they were
sure.
great at that. But they had hallucinations, which are these, all of a sudden they decided to go on a tangent
That's not real.
Not real,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to your question, we were playing with the technology, and one of the things we were running across phone. So I guess to back up a little bit. So to train these AI engines, you need data, right? So what we said is, okay, if we're gonna go down this road, where do we mine our data from? Like, where do we harvest it from? And for us, the logical starting point was just the hundreds of thousands of phone calls, recorded phone calls that we had from residents leaving messages in our system. Some of those messages were dispatched. Some of them were just general messages, but there was just a treasure trove of data within these phone calls. So we had to take a look at those. One, we needed a transcription engine. So we found a really great company called DeepCram
Okay.
that we use for transcribing audio to text. Okay. So these folks, again, they're on the spear of like all AI, like a lot of this conversational AI and all of that, that company is, sometimes you're lucky, like who you partner with determines like the optionality you have as a business. Because if you invest and partner with someone who maybe they go down the wrong rabbit hole,
or they exit, or
they exit, or they don't invest in the technology, then now you're kind of wed to them to some extent. And, it's hard to unwind that, or it takes time and resources. So, one of the things we've been very diligent about is making sure that we partner with people that we think are, one is they're investing in their technology, and two is they're going in a direction that we think makes sense.
That's great feedback for our listeners.
No, I think, and look, you learn that through trial and error. And with the acquisition that we had, again, we had some embedded folks within our technology that didn't give us flexibility or optionality. And that was limiting in some of the things that we wanted to do. But we did. We try not to make that mistake again. But you will. It's inevitable. But so far, knock on wood, we've been pretty lucky. So we had all these audio messages that we needed to transcribe. So that was the first process, is like getting that pool of data that we can now start feeding into these large language models and these engines to distill down and start to come up with just basic parameters, right? So if you look at it through the lens of maintenance, you have like plumbing calls, okay? You have security lockout calls, okay? So you start with some pretty basic buckets. You have heating and air conditioning calls. Let's start there. Let's take these hundreds of thousands of calls and see if we can first, out of those, take what we consider maintenance calls as opposed to just general calls, and then start classifying those in buckets, okay? So we did that. We became pretty good at putting them into a bucket, okay? Then once you get them into a bucket, now you got to like start figuring out, all right, of this subset, which of these require immediate response and which ones don't. And that has been even more challenging because, just through keywords like water flowing, flooding, words like that, you can start to discern that, okay, this is probably a plumbing issue, like a water issue. Not always, because you will have a refrigerator whose condenser, decides it, and then it's an appliance issue.
But that's the outlier.
That is the outlier,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So like using some of that analysis, it was fairly straightforward. But then, like the nuance of like what's an emergency and what's not an emergency becomes much more granular. And you have certain apartment communities or certain folks in the multifamily industry that'll classify one thing as an emergency, whereas another management company will say, we don't dispatch our folks out on that. So within there's not absolutes either, which is a challenge. So it really is the process of us starting with a tremendous amount of data, doing a foundational model really of AI that we could train with very specific data to get to a point with a high degree of accuracy that we could start saying these calls are emergencies and these calls weren't emergencies. But I remember, in 23, we had huge, just sheets of paper, because whiteboards that we had weren't big enough, that were labeling all of these different words in these categories. And then we would argue over, okay, should this be a plumbing or should this be an HVAC? And our folks trying to get those categorized and then dealing with outliers. And it's a process. There's no easy way to do it. It requires a lot of, at this level, human intervention. Generative AI is great, but generative AI needs parameters within to work. You can't just tell it to go tell me which ones of these are emergencies, because it needs a base of reference.
Correct.
And
that you need to give it.
That you need to give it. Yeah. And then you need to give it without absolutes, because there's always outliers and you can't miss, when you're dealing with emergency calls, you can't miss certain outliers. If somebody lives on the third floor and they don't leave, the information they're leaving for AI is not descriptive enough, then you possibly have taken a call that caused hundreds of $1,000s worth of damage as that water goes from the fourth floor to the third floor to the second floor, because nobody responded, because our AI engine looked at it and said, yeah, we don't need to dispatch on this one.
Yeah, it's
for whatever
not that
reason.
serious.
Right.
Yeah. David, you said a few things in there. One, that when you're experimenting, you're going to run kind of, I don't want to say mistakes, but trial and errors are bound to happen. You said it's inevitable. You've been doing this for so long, yet it really wasn't until a few years ago that it felt like every C-suite exec was looking into this, whether it be budgeting or how do I use this. Where you're around, I would say, executives for work, where do you see business owners, CEOs going wrong or making mistakes that maybe they could prevent when it comes to implementing AI and technology into their company? Because not everybody has an AI-based business. They're just learning how to implement it within their own enterprise.
Jenna, such a great question. And, I think people are scratching their heads around this at C-level suites across the world. It's a challenge. I think you need to come up with specific use cases for your customers that you see AI being applicable to offer a solution. I don't think that you can it's not a shotgun approach, in my opinion. I think that you can't take these large language models, other than summarizing conference calls or maybe reworking images or things like that it's good at and it's able to do. But you can't fully lean into it until you invest the time in training and finding that use case and making sure that you set AI up to be successful. And I think the biggest pitfall that we all have as company owners and C-level people is you don't want to get into the trap where you're applying AI and you're not solving a real solution and you're almost creating more of a mess of things, right? I'll give you a perfect example. This was like a month ago. We were dealing with one of the big internet providers, okay? And we had scheduled service to be set. We have a vacant lot that we wanted to put some cameras on, okay? So we wanted to get internet service for a vacant lot, okay? Which, if you've dealt with these internet providers, you were mind-blowing them when this happens, right? So as we had kind of engaged with them to make this happen, I was also exploring some other options, like could we do some exterior cell, like 5G antennas? And I actually was able to stumble upon a solution that wasn't going to take days for me to explain to different technicians on how I thought we could make this happen in my vacant lot. So I needed to cancel this appointment. It's a weird thing because this operator only would have given me, you could reset an appointment for 2 weeks, but you couldn't cancel the appointment without. So you're working with these AI chatbots, but you couldn't cancel the appointment without calling them. Okay. As we all know, is a nightmare, right?
Sure.
So I kept pushing this appointment off as I was looking for a new technology. Finally found the new technology and I was like, okay, I need to cancel this appointment, right? And it became so frustrating I was trying every possible way to get this chatbot to connect me with an agent, that all I wanted to do was tell them, look, I've got a vacant lot. I know you guys are going to have challenges doing this anyway. So I've got a better solution. I want to cancel the appointment. And I got locked in this AI hell. Okay.
This spiral.
It was a spiral, and I was like, this is exactly, as a business owner or a C-level operative, I don't want a customer to fall into this trap. It's a very easy trap to fall into because you'll invest heavily into AI, okay? And then you want to get an ROI on your investment. And typically that'll be deploying AI in some form or fashion. And, we like to look at it through the lens of augmenting people, making them more productive, as opposed to replacing people. We want to augment what they're able to do with their skill level set, as opposed to take the rudimentary, the basic stuff that AI can do very well off the table and allow them to focus on the things that really need like more deep thought.
Reallocate their time to,
Absolutely.
Harder tasks, more difficult tasks.
But as you go down this road, it's easy to fall into that trap. It's like, well, we could just get rid of that. Like that we could move from here. And I think this is exactly what the cable company did. Is it used to be that you could have these conversations with a chat bot, and then sooner or later somebody would jump in
and take over.
Yeah, and they might not have been based in America, but you would at least have somebody that could fumble their way through sooner or later to get you to a solution, and you weren't stuck in a dead end.
Yeah.
But you see an example like this, and that's a big red flag to me, is that we have a responsibility as pioneers in the AI world. And I would say this goes for anyone deploying AI solutions that are customer facing. We have a responsibility to educate our end users, one, on the power of AI, but the limitations of AI. Because if you go and you deploy AI, and let's say we deploy it at an apartment community, if we don't make the staff of that apartment community feel like this is a tool that they can embrace and not be afraid of, then we're already setting ourselves up for failure, because you need buy-in.
Yep.
Because there are going to be hiccups. There are no absolutes in the world of AI as of yet, and there won't be, in my opinion, for a while. And you need them not to be fearful of it, but you need for them to be able to understand the advantages of it and not view it as a threat, but as a complement to what they're doing. So I think that's important to always have at the forefront of anything that we're doing, is to speak to that. We have a responsibility to educate the end user, our consumer, but then we also have the responsibility of making sure that AI, it's addressing a real business problem. Because if you're deploying AI for the sake of saying you're an AI-based company and you're not solving real-world solutions with it, then you're probably going to end up with a frustrated experience.
And create a mess.
Yeah. And that, it sounds simple when you talk about it, but it's extremely challenging. And to your point, I think that people, all of us out there who run companies and who are looking at deploying AI, it's difficult. It's difficult because it's moving at light speed. You feel like you're falling behind if you're not implementing it at some form or level or fashion. And yet you got to be cognizant of these things, or you're going to have a bad experience. And then there's going to be a step back and a reevaluation and an end user who's ultimately frustrated, and you might lose them as a customer. So there's a lot whirling around there, and it's difficult.
So as far as looking ahead, because most business owners, of course, there's the focus on the present and doing a good job today, but what will be required in the future will be greater facility with using AI as it continues to get better and better and better. Some examples would be just reasoning agents that are developing, where you can really kind of get hard questions answered from the AI. You kind of just need to let it be for a little bit, as opposed to getting just an instant answer like that from a chat bot.
Right.
Then you have agentic AI, where you can basically say, okay, I need you to go in this spreadsheet and do X, Y, and Z for me. And it'll kind of just go off and do that. And you can just open up a window and do your own thing. What are some applications of AI in the future that you are really interested in?
So the world we want to embrace is the conversational AI world. It talks a little bit about what you mentioned there, is being able to have a back and forth conversation, okay, with an AI agent that ends up with a positive outcome, right? Where within lies the challenge, right? Is that now to have a good conversational relationship and get positive information or an answer out of it, typically you're merging AI with APIs. That's typically the APIs. That's the nugget of gold down there, is like looking into some other system and being able to say, answer a question. Like, has my package arrived? I'm waiting on an Amazon package that'll get delivered to the front office. Has my package arrived?
And
right?
That's the AP from that data.
Yes, because somewhere in the office, someone has keyed in to their property management software that, unit 100 has a package, that's arrived. But the AI agent won't know that unless it can reach down into that API, find that data, and then give an intelligent answer back. So I would say that as we get into the foundational world of AI, that you're going to see a lot more integrations that are happening, because that is where those answers are going to ultimately be held through some software, through some package that has to regurgitate that information to an AI model that can then relay that to the caller or the person using the AI. So from a conversational AI world, that's our challenge. Is we want to move from beyond maintenance, and this is where our development resources right now are going. It's funny. So we do a lot of, the world of multifamily is very kind of cheerleady, campy kind of, they do a lot in the trade show world. Okay. So we have sales reps who go to trade shows, and these big management companies all show up there, and, you have the booth and you try to woo them over and show them your latest and greats.
It's a pretty old school.
It's kind of old school. Right? There's a lot, they do a lot of other things as well, but that is one method to reach the end user. Our folks, when they go to these trade shows, we have t-shirts that say, "We love phone calls," right? Well, I can tell you that so many people will comment on that, and what they tell us is they're like, "We hate phone calls.
That's what I was just
we hate
say,
them, right?"
Like,
and I look like I have two children that graduate, recently graduated from college, so they're in their early 20s, and to get them to pick up the phone is like, it's like you're asking them to attend a 3-hour seminar for a timeshare.
You're like, it's going to take 2 minutes, I swear.
Like, just call. It's easier, So I think there's a real opportunity in our world to get that conversational AI right. So if we can move beyond just handling maintenance calls, using AI, but then start to pick up all of these phone calls, or the majority of these phone calls that are coming in throughout the day to an office at an apartment community, right? To have an intelligent interaction with an AI agent that, to your point, conversation needs to be fluid, right? If you ask me a question and I sit there for 10 seconds, then it starts to really wear on the listener, right? Well, it's the same if you're on a phone call. And we've all heard those, like somebody's clicking on a keyboard, like they try to fill that dead space with noise that somebody's off working. Yeah. But in actuality, it's that AI agent or something going to try to find the data that's going to answer the question or provide the information. We look at that too. So we're moving a lot of the tech stack is coming in-house now. So where we were deploying it from a cloud, we recognize that although the cloud is highly efficient in some fashion, there's some speed there that we can maybe enhance if we move some of that stack in-house. That's one thing that we're doing currently. And then two is getting those APIs integrated so that we can provide an interactive answer that is germane to the caller's need. So from our lens, we're looking at it from a conversational AI perspective, is you being able to call in, and if you're calling an apartment community, being able to ask, again, anything under the roof really that might relate to multifamily housing and get an answer, but then providing an off-ramp with our AI application that if we get stumped, that AI doesn't hallucinate and give you some kind of fabricated nothing. We recognize that we're not going to be able to answer this correctly, or we have our AI agent recognize that we can't provide a good answer here, and then funnel that to an interactive dashboard at the property level where they're seeing almost real-time callers that have been taken care of, that we think have been satisfied with the AI agent, and flagging the ones that we think need a human element to dig into. That is where we're going. That is our challenge, is to make that conversation fluid and relevant. So from that lens, there's a lot to unpack there, but that's kind of where we're going. But the applications are endless. Have you been to Scottsdale recently or LA?
Not recently this year, but yes, I've been.
So, my wife and I were out there a month ago in Scottsdale. It's gorgeous. It's a great place. And these Waymo automobiles, Alphabet's self-driving automobiles, they're everywhere out there. My wife and I were having a glass of wine, and we're sitting at this terrace and watching where they were picking and dropping people off. And, my wife made the comment, she's like, "I would never get in one of those," and I was like,
oh, you're like, wait, let me dive into this.
So our son was in Arizona, 3 or 4 months ago, and he was showing me there's an app, and I don't know if I think in some locations Waymo might tie to Uber, but they might have their own app as well, where you can just summon this car, it's driverless, picks you up, takes you to the airport. And he was filming it. It's amazingly cool technology. The statistics bear out that is way safer than humans driving. And it fascinates me. It's because there's so much there and such a you talk about a game changer. I mean, that type technology is running rampant. We need to embrace it and understand it because it'll change the world. I mean, there's such a great population of our culture, especially first generation Americans that are here and they're Uber drivers, right? In my opinion, in the next 5 years, those jobs are gone.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to the world? What does that mean to those first generation immigrants? What opportunities then are going to present themselves that give them the ability to start to live the American dream?
Yeah.
One of the things that impresses me about your company is that, you've been, like you said, since 1989 to now, there's been so much technological change. Like you said, there wasn't even internet that you're working on. So, we have the internet, we have really the personal computer revolution just expanding that time, and the shrinking of personal computers down to, smartphones, and now AI. What advice and wisdom would you have for business owners about being able to just, I would say, roll with the punches, or just going with the flow of technological change and just needing to adapt so often throughout your company's history? What insights would you have?
Especially for business owners and people that aren't utilizing AI right now.
Yeah. That's tough. One is don't be an ostrich.
Oh, I like
You
that.
can't stick your head in the sand and think this isn't going to change the world, because it will. It'll change the way people in your industry operate. There's not a lot of absolute truths in the world of AI right now. I would say when you read, there's a lot of opinions, from the world ending in 5 years to, them having cures for cancer in 5 years. You look at both sides of the coin of AI, and there's opinions that run the gambit. So read a lot, soak in a lot of information. Don't read 1 or 2 articles and think that's the absolute, because I think there's very few absolutes with AI right now, other than, in my opinion, it will change the world, and probably for better in most areas. So, and even if you have a simple business, if you're a contractor or you're working in the trades or whatever, there's going to be applications of AI. And maybe that's an integrated smart glass that entry-level tradespeople be able to wear these glasses while they're looking at a problem and a solution starts to present itself. There's understanding that is wisdom being imparted on them while they're on the job site, because this AI lens is filtering all this data and understanding what the person's seeing. So I think there's applications across the board. Doing nothing is not an option, in my opinion. But then deploying AI for the sake of deployment is not a foundation for success either. So I think you really need to just learn, expose yourself to different applications, and then open your mind up to the possibilities. Because I think that's the part of AI that's most exciting to me, is what opens up because of it. Where do these applications allow us to become better human beings and to allow our employees a higher quality of life? To your point about the spreadsheet earlier, my son works in the accounting world. Like, it used to be that the entry-level folks at these big firms would be a lot of data entry. That's what they're doing. It all goes downhill, right? And if you're the new person on board, you're getting the data entry job, right?
Yeah.
But AI is changing that. So now, you can say, populate this spreadsheet with all the data from these fields. Need to go to these fields, and you're off doing something else while that's going on in the background. These are big data sets that are being moved over by AI, and you still need eyes on it to check it out to make sure it's right. But I think in industries where you can embrace AI to do the rudimentary, to take away the boring tasks that all of us find ourselves subject to in certain daily practices or industries, then that's where I think it starts to become exciting for employees. I think companies need to look at that and figure out the applications there, and then open your mind up to the possibilities, because that's excitement is not like the threat of it, which is exciting in and of itself in a challenging and scary way. But the real excitement of it is the possibility of how we apply it to really change the world or change our industry or change our employer or customers' lives.
I love that. Don't be an ostrich, absorb, learn.
Yeah.
David, thank you. This has been amazing. You are a wealth of information, not just from AI, but just your experience. So thank you. If our audience wants to get in touch with you,
Sure.
how do they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find me. My email address is probably the easiest. I'm old school, so I'm not on tons of social media.
I thought you were going to give your actual address.
I'm going to give you, hit me up at HelloSpoke, shoot me an email. I'm available, and I'm on LinkedIn. So if you want to look me up there, I'm happy to respond to any thoughts or ideas or messages if you send them my way.
Fantastic. We will include that in the show notes.
Thanks a lot, Jenna.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
David.
it. Thank you all.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Go AI. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and review our podcast so we can continue to grow and offer more great AI content. If you're looking for digital marketing, digital transformation, or AI help, make sure you visit www.guardianowdigital.com. Have questions? Email team@guardianowdigital.com for answers. See you next time on Go AI.